Hello and welcome to the program. The International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea has made a decision obliging Russia to release the 24 Ukrainian sailors and 3 vessels captured in the Black Sea in November last year and allow them to return to Ukraine. Now, the Kremlin has rejected a UN tribunal's call and said it would continue to defend its position over the naval clash. To discuss this, we're joined in the studio today by Lishchyna. He's a Deputy Minister of Justice and Ukraine's agent for European Court of Human Rights. Hello, and thank you for joining us.
Hello.
So, first question, the tribunal's decision was a 19-1 vote with only the Russian judge supporting Moscow. Now, what exactly stated this in the decision, and what is the importance of this document here?
This is one of the first decisions where Russia is definitively found in breach of the international law in the small part really, of a bigger hybrid war it is waging against Ukraine at the moment. This is like the first one where they're specifically ordered to release Ukrainian sailors and Ukrainian ships, something which Ukraine have been asking about, requesting before various international forums. And finally, one of them specifically ordered Russia, so now they have two choices. They either comply with this order or become one of the states like North Korea, states which simply disregard international law.
But this could lead to further isolation of Russia, which was already isolated on the international scene in a way.
I agree that it is like more isolated than it was like 5 years ago, but still it is a part of international law. It is participating actively in the work of various international organizations, but now they're going to be reminded time and again about their failure were specific to abide by a specific order of international court. So it would become much more difficult for Russia to ignore the truth that it is actually waging the war against Ukraine.
Now, one of the big questions asked by the experts around these events and the chain of events, and also this tribunal's decision, is will Russia comply, and how can we make Russia comply to this decision?
Well, international law, it is about agreements. It is about unilateral actions. There are very little means with which you can force a state to comply with international law, really. Apart from sanctions, which are imposed, you understand, by various states and international organizations, like they decide, it's their decision to impose those sanctions or not. If there is any say of Russia in anything, then it would, of course, be impossible to impose anything. For instance, a Security Council of the UN cannot order Russia to do anything because Russia is a part of it and it has a right of veto. So any decision it doesn't like. So basically, it's short of an outright war against Russia. There are very limited mechanisms with which it could be forced to do anything. On the other hand, it would become more and more, as I said, isolated, like a refugee state, being among states which have like no standing whatsoever in international relations. And of course, for Russia honor, it is a very serious blow.
So it's a question of trust in between Russia and its partner, basically. Now, it adds up to a long list of complaints by Ukraine, by other countries, against Russia. But is it this Azov-Sea crisis, as experts tend to call it, is it a new step in how is it a new step in the hybrid war that Russia is waging against Ukraine?
Well, the decision itself, it is not a big, well, no, it is a step, but it is a step for Ukraine, because Ukraine took up this we call it legal war against Russia, where we are trying to uncover all those shady actions, all those lies. Russia is mounting one upon another one, and on top of another one, trying to hide from the world that it is actually at war with Ukraine. And now we have a very specific decision, one of the very few ones which we managed to secure against Russia, ordering them to do something very simple, just release our sailors. And we'll see how it goes. I mean, of course, Russia at the moment denies everything, but we'll see, because I have very high hopes with respect to this particular decision due to its very specific and clear demands.
Now, the fact that it happened at sea also is also a new step in this conflict. Would the decision of the Tribunal of Law of the Sea also help redefine at least a proper and clear status of these water for, at least say like that, these are neutral water for Ukraine, and at least could it make that kind of thing clear between both countries?
It's difficult for me to go into details on that, because this is not really the sphere of my expertise. But what it really helps, I can tell you, is that it is going to help a lot with our case before the European Court of Human Rights. Because before that, our case on unlawful detention of our sailors was based on the fact that we were trying to prove that they were prisoners of war. And with respect to prisoners of war, there are very different rules of treatment. However, now we have we also said that their detention was unlawful per se, because it was in breach of, in particular, Convention on the Law of Sea. But now we have a very clear order from the court, and the failure to comply with this order is really a very simple issue, which we can easily put before the European Court of Human Rights, and it would be very easy for this court to find Russia in breach of Article 5 of European Convention, which prohibits unlawful detention, because now it is obviously unlawful, because there is a very clear order for Russia to release them. There is a case law of European Court of Human Rights which says that when there is an order of the court to release a person, this person cannot be held in prison anymore.
Now, does the fact that this exact fact that they're under the Geneva Convention, like having the status, claiming having the status of being prisoners of war, would you say it helps? It can help them, or it can be an obstacle to their release in general?
No, I think that it's not only help. I think that it is at the moment the only help, the only hope that they have to be released. I have always been skeptical about all those political exchanges that Russian president can exercise a goodwill to the newly elected Ukrainian president and release them. This all appeared very unclear and I don't know, something which maybe politicians and diplomats are good at, but as a lawyer, I always thought that that was insufficiently clear. But here we have a very clear order. Now, Russian president cannot say that he is releasing the sailors because it is a goodwill of Russian Federation. No, he is doing it because there is a clear order from the court to do that.
So the fact is that he has to comply. I mean, on an international level, as you say, it's not really a political game, but he has to comply just on a matter of the law.
Exactly.
Basically. And that's, is it why, and so what is the importance of this, like, separate arbitration on that matter?
By way of capturing our ships and our sailors, Russian Federation breached a number of international covenants. including European Convention on Human Rights, in which, with respect of which there is a separate application, the Convention on the Law of Sea, and also Geneva Conventions on the treatment of prisoners of war. Well, in view of that, Ministry of Foreign Affairs initiated relevant proceedings before this tribunal, which works as a mechanism for dispute resolution with respect to this Convention on the Law of Sea, and Ministry of Justice filed the relevant application with the European Court of Human Rights, and those proceedings were, considered in parallel. European Court of Human Rights granted its interim measures somewhat earlier, but they concerned only the medical assistance to the wounded sailors. Now we have a decision of another international body, judicial body, which now is much, of course, it goes much further. It specifically orders Russia to release them.
Now, and to conclude this interview, what is the next step here?
As I said, the next step in European Court of Human Rights, we are going to file an additional application. Well, it would be the same application, but further comments with respect to Russia's failure to abide by the decision of this tribunal. In the tribunal, as I understand, I'm not a specialist, but as far as I understand, they are going to first form a proper tribunal, because that was like an emergency arbitration procedure. Now they're going to create a proper tribunal which would consider the case.
Well, thank you for this legal overview. It was a pleasure to have you in the studio today to talk about this issue of the Ukrainian sailors captured in the Black Sea. Now, that was Lishchyna, Deputy Minister of Justice and Ukraine's agent for European Court of Human Rights. Thank you for watching the program, and stay tuned for the rest.